I struck it rich in the lottery but kept it under wraps. When I asked my parents for a temporary place to stay, my mom declared, "You're merely a visitor in our home. Pay $1,500 monthly or sleep in your car." 3 weeks later, she watched me finalize the purchase of a $980,000 house in cash, froze their accounts, and walked away. The next morning, my phone showed 53 missed calls and a mysterious box slipped under my door. "You're just a visitor in our home. Pay $1,500 monthly or sleep in your car." My own mother tossed those words at me without lifting her eyes from her phone. She didn't notice my hands clenching beneath the kitchen table or how my jaw locked so tight I thought my teeth might shatter. She just kept swiping, her manicured nails tapping the screen like a countdown to my embarrassment. "I only need a place for a few weeks," I said, forcing my tone to stay steady. "A visitor," she cut in, as if I were a stranger pitching a timeshare. "Visitors pay or they're out." My father sat at his usual spot at the table's head, staring into his coffee cup like it held the secrets of the universe. He didn't utter a syllable, not to back me up, not to protest, just silence. Across from me, my brother grinned over his oatmeal, the spoon clinking against the bowl in slow, calculated taps, the same smug look he'd flashed my whole life whenever I was put in my place. $1,500, my mother repeated, sliding a typed list across the table like she was my property manager. It detailed the exact amount, due dates, even late fees. She'd actually drafted a payment plan for her own son. I stared at the sheet, then at her. She didn't blink. "This isn't a free ride," she added. "We have expenses. We're not here to make your life simpler." That was when it hit me. They had no clue. No clue that 3 days earlier, I'd strolled into a convenience store, spent $6 on a scratch-off and a latte, and walked out with a ticket worth $14.8 million. No clue that while they were charging me for a bed in the house I was raised in, I could buy a yacht in cash tomorrow. No clue that the penniless son they were so quick to dismiss could purchase their home twice over and still have enough to retire forever. I folded the sheet, pushed it back across the table, and forced a smile. "All right," I said, "I'll consider it." My brother scoffed. My mother gave a curt, triumphant nod. My father took another sip of coffee. None of them sensed the tsunami approaching. I didn't breathe a word about my win, not to friends, not to my parents, not even my ex. It was almost comical, 6 numbers, 1 ticket. And suddenly I had $14.2 million stashed in a discreet account under a trust. No one could link to me. I knew if my family found out, they'd see me less as a son and more as a walking bank vault. If you think I'm exaggerating, let me give you some context. My parents, Martin and Sheila, drilled into me the mantra of family comes first, which in our house meant I came last. When my older brother, Ryan, needed college funds, they asked me, at 19, scraping by at a retail job, to contribute a bit. That bit became me covering his rent for 2 years. When my younger sister, Lily, booked her dream wedding venue, guess who maxed out 2 credit cards for the deposit? Me. It was always the same cycle. I worked, they spent. I gave, they reveled. And every time I tried to draw a line, I was guilted into caving. "We gave you life," my mom would croon, "so you can't put a price on helping family." The only price in our family seemed to be my bank account. So when I checked my lottery ticket at 6:42 a.m. in my rundown 1-bedroom apartment and saw those numbers align perfectly, my first thought wasn't, "I'm rich." It was, "They can never find out." For 3 months, I lived the same way Jonah's brother's way. Same apartment, same old Corolla, same instant noodles. My coworkers had no idea I was a multimillionaire. Every cent I spent came from my paycheck cash. I let the interest in the account grow quietly while I planned my next step. Then came the night that turned everything upside down. My landlord sold the building, and the new owner wouldn't renew my lease. I had 30 days to vacate. I could have bought the whole complex with 1 check, but that would have raised flags I wasn't ready to wave. So I did what seemed like the easiest, most sensible thing. I called my mom. It was a Sunday afternoon right before dinner. "Hey, I might need to stay with you and Dad for a bit," I said, "just until I find a new place." There was a pause, not the warm, of course, sweetie kind. More like the pause someone makes when they're tallying a bill. "Well," Mom said slowly, "you're just a visitor in our home now. We can't afford to support another adult. It has to be fair." "Fair?" I echoed, feeling a burn creep up my neck. "Yes, $1,500 a month. That covers rent, utilities, and inconvenience." She actually chuckled after saying inconvenience, like I was a stray cat rummaging through her garbage. "Otherwise, maybe you should sleep in your car for a while. You're young. You'll figure it out." I was so stunned, I didn't even argue. My own mother, who I'd handed thousands to over the years, was telling me to pay to sleep in my childhood bedroom or live in my Corolla. The resentment burrowed into my chest like a thorn. For the next 3 weeks I went quiet. No calls, no updates. I found a realtor, viewed properties under my trust's name, and within 10 days closed on a $980,000 home in cash. No loan, no bank forms for anyone to stumble across. Just a smooth, silent purchase. 2 days after signing, I drove straight from the title office to my parents' house. I didn't call ahead. I wanted them to see it for themselves. They were in the living room, glued to the TV. My mom's smile when she saw me was the stiff, polite one she saved for strangers. "Hey, stranger," she said. "Finally decided to stop by?" "Actually," I replied, pulling the thick envelope from my coat. "I just wanted to drop this off." I slid the deed across the coffee table. The gold-stamped "Sale paid in full" gleamed under the light. My mom's eyes scanned the page, then widened. "You bought a house?" she asked, her voice taut, almost choked. "In cash," I said casually, leaning back in the chair. "Figured I'd skip the $1,500 a month visitor fee." Her face paled. My dad stayed mute. I stood, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. "Oh, by the way," I added without turning, "you might want to check your joint accounts." Here's the deal. I'd known for years they were funneling my help money into a shared investment fund for trips, new cars, and whatever Ryan and Lily wanted. I was quietly listed as a co-owner, giving me legal rights to shift the balance. By the time I got home, I'd moved every penny into a private account under my trust. I didn't touch a cent, just locked it where they couldn't reach it. The next morning, my phone exploded. 53 missed calls, voicemails from Mom, Dad, Ryan, even Lily, cycling through panic, fury, and crocodile tears. I ignored them all. Then at 7:14 a.m., something slid under my front door. A small, worn wooden box. No note, no explanation, just my mother's handwriting on a strip of tape. "For you. Please call." That's when I knew this wasn't over. Not by a mile. I had no plans to return to my parents' place anytime soon. After the $1,500 rent demand, I kept my visits brief, civil, and forgettable. But the universe loves tossing fuel on fading flames to see what ignites. It was a Sunday morning when my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. First, a text from Mom. "We need to talk, urgent." Then one from Dad. "Come over. Your brother's here too." Translation: family ambush incoming. When I walked in, the tension was palpable. Mom sat at the table with her serious coffee mug, the one she used when she was about to make someone feel small. Dad leaned back, arms crossed. My brother Alex sprawled with that lazy, predatory grin he'd honed since middle school. "We've been discussing," Mom started. "Given your situation, it's only fair you contribute more. $1,500 a month was generous. Now we're thinking $2,000. I stared at her. "My situation? You're staying in our home," she said, like she was explaining gravity to a child. "If you don't like it, find somewhere else." Dad leaned forward. "We're not a charity." That word, charity, snapped something in me. I'd been silent for weeks, keeping my lottery win locked away like a loaded gun. But now they'd handed me the trigger. "You know what's funny?" I said, keeping my voice even. "Last week I signed papers for something big, all cash." Alex smirked. "What, a used car?" I smiled. "A house." That erased his grin. Mom blinked. "A what?" $980,000 paid in full." The room went still. Dad's jaw clenched. Alex leaned forward like he'd misheard. "That's impossible," Mom said. "You don't have that money." "I do now," I said. "Won the lottery 2 months ago?" Silence. Then Dad let out a short, incredulous laugh. "You're joking." I pulled the deed copy from my jacket and slid it across the table. Their eyes traced the bold ink. "Owner," my name. Mom's face lost all color. "You didn't tell us?" "You didn't ask," I said. "Besides, I figured you'd just see me as a visitor in your home." Dad's chair scraped back. "If you've got that kind of money, you can help us out. We're behind on the mortgage. Your mom's car needs replacing." "Alex," I raised a hand. "Stop. You made it clear this isn't my home. You wanted rent. You treated me like a burden. Now I'm saying my money is mine." "I owe you nothing." Mom's voice sharpened. "We're family." "Family doesn't charge for a bed," I cut in. "Family doesn't treat me like I'm dead weight unless I'm paying." Dad's voice boomed. "Watch your tone." I stood, easing my chair back slowly. "No. You watch yours. This is the last talk we'll have about me giving you money. You've bled me dry for years. I'm done." Alex muttered. "You're selfish." I smiled at him. "Enjoy paying your own bills." "Oh, wait, you don't." "My mistake." Then I left. No door-slamming theatrics. No parting shots. Just the jingle of my new house keys in my pocket as I walked away. That night, I transferred the last of my parents' emergency accounts out of the joint bank we'd shared when I was helping them in my lean years. Froze every linked card. If they wanted cash, they could earn it like I did. The next morning, my phone lit up with 53 missed calls, and when I opened my apartment door, there was a small, weathered box on the floor. No note. No return address. I picked it up, feeling the weight shift inside. Whatever was in there wasn't light, and when I heard the faint metallic clink, I knew this wasn't over. The box was small enough to tuck under my arm, but it felt heavy, like secrets do. I set it on the kitchen island, the brass latch cool under my thumb, and opened it. On top, a stack of family photos. Birthday parties, holiday mornings, me holding gifts I'd bought myself, pretending to be surprised. All those forced smiles were a kind of lie. Proof for outsiders that we were okay. Beneath them, a manila envelope. Inside, photocopies of my driver's license, social security card, and old pay stubs from jobs I'd nearly forgotten. Every document neatly arranged, like someone had been compiling a file on me. The kind you'd keep to take out loans in someone's name and make it look legit. At the bottom, wrapped in a crumpled store receipt, was a brass key, worn smooth from years of use. Taped to it was a scrap of paper in my mother's looping handwriting. "You'll need this. We can still fix this." Fix this? They weren't apologizing. This wasn't reconciliation, it was bait. A hook dressed up as a gift, dangled to see if I'd come crawling back, asking what it opened. My guess? A safe. Probably holding whatever they didn't want me to find, or something they thought they could barter for my forgiveness. The phone buzzed again on the counter. Another voicemail from Mom, voice tight and shaky. "We're family. Families work together. Your dad's livid about the accounts, but I told him you'll come around. Just bring the key back and we'll talk." I didn't listen to the rest. Deleted. That night, I sat in the living room of my new house with a drink I didn't sip, staring at the box on the coffee table. It felt like a relic from a battlefield. I had everything I'd ever said I wanted. My own place. My own money. No one looming over me. Yet the shadow of their hands lingered, reaching through a brass key. By morning, my phone had another dozen missed calls, 3 from unknown numbers. By noon, I had a visitor. Alex stood at the gate, hands jammed in his hoodie, faking that casual stance he used to charm people. "Look," he started, leaning toward the intercom. "Mom's a wreck, Dad's furious, but we can sort this out. You've got plenty, just cover the mortgage for a few months and we'll drop all this drama." I almost laughed. "You mean buy my way back into the family?" "It's not like that," he said. "We're in a bind. You've got the Declarations of Independence. Don't be cruel." I pressed the intercom button and said one word. "Goodbye." By the end of the week, the flood of calls slowed to a drip. The silence was almost unsettling at first, like a machine shutting off. I started noticing the quiet at night. The sound of my own breathing, no guilt-tripping voicemails. No 2 a.m. crisis texts. For the first time in years, my life was just mine. I unpacked my boxes, stocked my fridge with food I actually enjoyed, and set up an office for the investment plans I'd been delaying. I walked barefoot in my own space and felt like I owned every inch of it. Not just the deed, but the air, the peace. 3 days later, a plain white envelope slid under my door. No name, no return address. Inside was a single sheet in Mom's handwriting. "We're selling the house. Don't come by. You wouldn't understand." I read it twice, then tucked it into a drawer. If they wanted to burn the bridge, fine. I wasn't crossing it again. But something about that note nagged at me. Selling the house. That house had been their stronghold for 2 decades. If they were selling it, they were in dire straits. The brass key in my drawer gnawed at my thoughts. That evening, I pulled the box out again, unwrapped the key, and held it in my palm. My instincts screamed it unlocked something in that house. Perhaps a safe. Perhaps a hidden room. Maybe the real reason they were so eager to push me out when I asked for a place to stay. For the first time, I toyed with the idea of using it. I didn't, not yet. Instead, I dialed my attorney and instructed him to secure every financial account they'd ever linked to my name. He didn't pry, just said, "Wise choice," and assured me the documents would hit my inbox by morning. By the weekend, the calm started to feel tangible. I woke early, went for jogs, cooked meals for myself. I began sketching plans for a venture I'd dreamed of for years. Without the constant clamor of their demands, my thoughts were clear. But just when I thought the tempest had passed, one final blow landed. A bulky, padded envelope appeared in my mailbox. No sender. Inside was a stack of receipts, all in my name. Thousands spent on purchases I never made. Airline tickets, jewelry, hotel bookings. Taped to the top was a sticky note. It wasn't personal. I sat there, gripping the evidence, feeling that old, familiar fury swell like a wave. They were still trying to excuse it, still convincing themselves that using me, bleeding me dry, wasn't betrayal. It was just family business. I slipped the receipts back into the envelope, locked them in my safe beside the box, and shut it with a final snap. That night, I stood on my back deck, watching the sky shift from amber to navy. The brass key rested on the table beside me. I didn't know what it opened. I didn't know if I'd ever use it. But I knew this, whatever lay behind that lock was part of the past, and I wasn't going back. 6 months. That's how long it's been since the box, the key, and the last time I heard my mother's voice. The calls stopped first, then the texts, then the emails. At first, the quiet felt unnatural, like a room where the heater cuts off and you suddenly notice the silence's weight. But gradually it sank in. This wasn't emptiness. This was liberation, and it was mine. The old family house sold 2 months after the confrontation. I didn't drive by, didn't linger if I passed the street. My attorney emailed me the figures, mortgage settled, proceeds divided among Mom, Dad, and Alex. Lily got nothing. She called one night. Her voice was frayed like worn thread. They used my name for a loan I didn't even know until the bank called. I listened, said nothing. "You were right," she whispered, then hung up. That was our longest talk in years, and the first where I felt no burden to carry afterward. The brass key remains in my safe, wrapped in that crumpled store receipt. Sometimes I hold it, tracing its grooves, wondering if it opens a safe, a chest, or a secret room in that house. But every time the answer is the same. I don't care anymore. Whatever's behind that lock belongs to a chapter I've closed, and I'm not reopening it. Not for curiosity, not for closure, not for them. It took weeks to sever every financial tie, every joint account, every automatic withdrawal, every hidden access they'd built into my money. My attorney and I reviewed it line by line, like dismantling a trap. The day the bank confirmed the final account was closed, I stood in my kitchen with a glass of whiskey I didn't drink, watching the evening light dance on my countertops. I said it aloud, "You can't reach me now." The silence that followed was sweeter than any cheers. The lottery money still there, still growing. I didn't buy a mansion or a garage full of cars. I bought a lake cabin, modest, serene. The kind of place where mornings are so still the water seems to hold its breath. No one knows the address except my attorney and one friend I'd trust with my life. I stay there for weeks at a time, phone off, laptop shut. I live simpler now than I ever did when I was broke, and somehow I feel wealthier than ever. One letter came from Mom, cream envelope, her familiar slanted handwriting, like she was trying to make it seem official. I didn't open it. Instead, I scribbled on a sticky note, "Water doesn't drown you unless you let it," slapped it on the front and sent it back without a stamp, knowing she'd have to pay to get it returned. Dad never called. Alex sent me a friend request online. I didn't hesitate before ignoring it. Lily sends occasional pictures of her dog, tail wagging, tongue lolling, eyes bright. I respond with a heart emoji and nothing more. That's the line. I've learned boundaries don't lock people out. They lock you in. Sometimes I open the safe and look at the box. Not because I miss them, not because I'm tempted to forgive, but because it's evidence. Evidence that I once let people drain me until I was empty. And evidence that I learned to shut the valve. Evidence that I can care about someone and still say no. Last week, I stood on the deck of my lake cabin, watching the sun sink into the water. My phone buzzed on the railing. Unknown number. I didn't even glance at it. I let it ring until it stopped. The sky shifted from amber to deep blue, and in that transition, I realized something. The storm didn't end when they stopped calling. It ended when I stopped answering. I locked the door behind me, slid the bolt into place, and smiled. This time, the lock wasn't about keeping anyone out. It was about keeping myself in. And I knew with absolute certainty this silence is mine. Forever.